So again, good morning. Again, it's Richard Howe with ResultsPositive. I've been with ResultsPositive for roughly around 13 years. Been specialized in Fortify for the last 2 years. And David Parks, who is with Hewlett-Packard, he's my counterpart. David and I, we work together on Fortify deals together, and he's actually here on this webinar. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining this call. Again, this should not take too much long for the slide deck, and then we'll turn it over for the actual software demonstration. So let's talk a little about security itself. We all know, we talk about security. A lot of times, a lot of organizations or companies consider security is more around your network, or we call the parameter. And that's, we all talk about antivirus from that perspective. And again, you should have that. All companies should have that. But what we've seen is that a lot of companies or organizations actually spend a lot of money or their time around the actual perimeter type security software. However, a lot of those breaches or the issues is really more or less on the application side. So you can see this diagram kind of points out, again, where the applications is really where a lot of the breaches are more concentrated versus the actual perimeter of the network. So let's talk about the software development process. I know all companies have a process. It may not be all the same, but they're probably pretty much closely as far as in the development, test, deploy, and things like that. And I think we're all kind of guilty at this situation before. A lot of times we'll develop some code that we call insecure software, insecure not being any type of security measures being in place for that. 2, we actually will deploy the insecure software. And then 3, lo and behold, something's breached from an application perspective. And then 4, we have to get the developer or someone to come fix the problem. So you can see that can be a very expensive process. And again, it's not being proactive, it's being really reactive. And I think a lot of times companies, when they get breached, that's when they start reaching out and putting something in place from a software perspective. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have probably seen this diagram. This diagram has probably been closely also used for when defects are found in production versus when they're caught early in the process of your life cycle. Again, security is no different, right? If I have a security an issue and I'm fixing it in production, well, of course, it's going to be more expensive to fix in production than it will be if I caught up early in the development process. So again, a good diagram that talks about why you should apply your security, apply that early in the process of the life cycle. So solution. So again, very familiar with this, SDLC, development, test, deploy. I think we all kind of follow that model. Kind of the new SDLC, and as new age and companies are more going to this phase, is now you're actually securing your development, right? You're actually catching the problems from a security issue or things like that. As we move into security testing, let's just say security testing is more around your QA stage or QA phase. Again, you're catching the security in your QA testing there. And then secure deployment is, once we move into production, what are we doing to still protect our applications, right? So again, it's an iteration process. Again, another diagram that talks about how we're covering the life cycle from a security perspective. So if you look on the left where it has the build and test, we consider that more the development stage, right? And Fortify has what they call SCA, that's Scan Code Analyzer. This is where you can actually scan your code, and it will actually pinpoint where your issues are from a code perspective, right? In the middle part, we have a release and deploy. Fortify has Web Inspect. Web Inspect is like it penetrates into the application or to the web application and determines where those threats are vulnerable, right? And then thirdly, to the right is the operate or monitor, where they have Fortify's App Defender. We usually call that as a wrapper, and that's actually protect anything that we may have missed that a hacker may try to get into the application. So it's kind of a defender there. Again, a diagram that just kind of talks about how it covers end-to-end life of security from a life cycle perspective. Again, we talked about that. Again, Fortify has, in the development stage, it has the Fortify SCA, which is Scan Code Analyzer. Web Inspect is more your dynamic product, which is more, we talked about more used in our testing, QA testing phase. And the runtime is Application Defender. Again, all these products, they can be on-premise software, or they can actually be on-demand, is what, or HPE SaaS solution. So if you want to go to a cloud solution, Fortify offers all these products in that model. So let's talk a little about Static Code Analyzer. Again, this is typically used in the development phase. It's able to scan your code, kind of pinpoint what those issues are, vulnerabilities, things like that. It actually will prioritize your critical versus your non-critical issues with your code. It supports 21 languages, and there's 500 plus type of categories of those type of things. So again, a very cool product, and it definitely, and what I know is that SCA is updated, I think, like once a month with its checking out the new type of breaches that are coming out. So it's an excellent product. Again, this is where you would actually scan your code, pinpoint any type of issues. Web Inspect is kind of what we talked about, typically used probably in your QA phase. Again, when you're, as a QA person, you're typically making sure there's no defects, the requirements are being met. Also, you got to make sure the security requirements are being met. Again, this allows you to attack it from the application side, and again, it tries to penetrate and find where there are issues with your application. Again, it will prioritize what are considered critical or non-critical issues with the application. Again, this is HPE's Web Inspect. And lastly is the Application Defender, as I call it, the wrapper. Again, it's used once you move it in production. It actually will protect any type of breaches that may try to, or someone tries to get to your application. Again, when I talk about application security, I don't know if people are familiar with SQL injects. That's probably the most popular breach that people will use on websites or applications. Again, the wrapper is a great product. People say, well, why should I get an application defender if I already have Fortify's SCA or Web Inspect? Two reasons. One, I've had a lot of companies who develop a lot of time in an new ERP system, and they're about to go live, and they said, hey, we haven't done any type of security. What should we do? I tell them, get Application Defender. That way, you spend a year of your time and money on this application. This will help minimize those risks once you move from production. Once you've got it in production, it'll actually tell you where those issues are at, and then you can go back in time and look at it from a development perspective with SCA and start fixing that code. The other thing is, if you have all three products, you're really minimizing those risks, right? So you're pretty much addressing the full life cycle, SDLC. And I have a YouTube video from a customer reference.
We consider Fortify to be a best-in-class application because of its maturity, the fact that it covers so many languages, so many environments, and the fact that it integrates so well. We can take it and integrate into what the customer's doing and into their business and not have to make them do what we want them to do, but integrate the way they work. Fortify has really turned out to be the best solution for our customers for a couple of reasons. One is because it's maturity in the market, so it covers more development languages, it covers more environments, build environments, and things like that. It's just a much more mature solution than we've really seen with anything else. That's been our biggest advantage with Fortify. So some of the advantages that they get with Fortify today is the ability to integrate early into their development processes. So the ability to scan code very early in their processes, scan applications as they're being built, so that by the time they're ready to go live, they can deliver the code to the business and get value from it. Service Master is a good example. So there we've been able to roughly quadruple the amount of scanning that we've done. So we have code coverage on most of our applications now. So we can measure how many applications are being released, if they've had scans done on them, if the vulnerabilities have been mitigated. So we know exactly that the proper testing has been done and that the issues have been mitigated. An additional benefit that we've seen with using Fortify early in the development cycle is that developers, when they make a mistake, that we find the vulnerabilities very quickly. Because they do that, it's an immediate feedback loop. So one of the things I've learned over the years is if you train a developer to code securely once a year, odds are they're going to forget it. It shortens that learning curve, and it's applicable to the code they just developed, not some theoretical thing a year later. So it's been huge. But talking about application security, a concern is always going to be money. How much does it cost to do it? Are we going to save money? And really, that's fairly easy to quantify for a customer. So just in developer cost, the cost of the Fortify solution and the services we're providing is offset almost 100% by the savings in developer time. That's pretty consistent. Development is very expensive. So anything we can do to make it faster, better, is going to save money. When we're working with our customers, there's some things that we have to have in order to be successful. We have to be able to integrate with development teams. We have to be able to get consistently reliable results, and that's what Fortify has given us. The ability to integrate with development teams, with development processes, with build environments, and know that we're consistently getting good results. Because then that allows us to add value, to reduce vulnerabilities, and communicate that to management. So really it's an enabling technology to us that doing it any other way would be incredibly difficult.
Okay. So we're going to turn it over to George Otubu. He's our HP system engineer. He'll actually be providing the demonstration at SCA. George, are you there on the line?
On the line. I'm also with David Parks. I'm David.
Hi, sorry about that earlier, Rich. I think we were having some sound issues here, but thank you everyone who's on the line. My name is David Parks. I'm with HPE Security, and as Richard previously said, I am a Fortify specialist, and I cover the North Central area. This role, I've been in this role since November here, but once again, I'd just like to thank everyone for taking time out of your morning to join us today.
Okay. So before I go into the product, just wanted to go through 3, 4 slides. I know the reference today would be on our static code analyzer for static testing. Just wanted to go through the slides quickly, and after that we could dive into the product. Sounds good? So I know we just went over Fortify as a solution in terms of our static testing, our dynamic testing, and also our runtime self-protection. Just wanted to show where these solutions actually lie within the SDLC, and also wanted to state that we provide multiple ways in which our technology can be consumed, either as an on-premise solution for the static code analyzer for static and web inspect for dynamic, or as a security as a service solution, which is very similar to managed services, which we call our Fortify on Demand, that's able to perform both static and dynamic testing within the same portal. Now, since our focus is on our static code analyzer for today, I'll just go through some of the tools that you get with our static code analyzer that come in the box when you install the software. Now, the 2 major pieces that you need to be looking at, one would be the source code analyzer, which is the main engine that does the scanning for you, and the other would be the software security assistant, which is more like a dashboard view that gives you a high-level overview or even a full overview of all the applications that you've run, either static or dynamic. So the good thing with this, if you have Software Security Center and you already have our static code analyzer or our web inspect product, rather than going through 2 different portals to view results for static and dynamic, you can all view them in a single portal and see how your organization's doing with that Software Security Center. Now, we do provide you an IDE that's available within the software called Audit Workbench. It's a tool that you can use for scanning, remediation. You can also use it to view all and generate any report that you need. Lastly, we do integrate with a bunch of IDEs and build tools, such as Visual Studio, Eclipse, VSTS, TFS, and also Jenkins out of the box. So it's a good way for you to build this process automatically into your SDLC. So right after every build, let's say your developers go home, they come back, there's a new fresh set of results that they can go through. Now, we still have some other tools that are embedded within the software. Take for example, Software Assistant. Look at it kind of like a spell checker in Word. It's currently available just for Eclipse and for Java programming language, but it's a way for you to start security detection very early within your SDLC. So as your developers go in and write that code, they're able to see in real time if they've written a vulnerable code and can make adjustments as they go through. And just the other tools in case you need to write your own custom rules within our SCA scanning engine, or a scan wizard, which is another way for you to initiate scans. Any questions? Okay, so let's take a look at the scanning process. Typically, you would have your developers checking code into a code repository, and this is where we ask for that automation within the build. So if, let's use VSDSI as an example, you can build that build step in, so the system automatically goes in and pulls out that code ready for scanning. And once the scan is complete, it's going to upload those results into Software Security Center. So when the security team or development team goes in, they can easily go into that single portal to check their results. You can even have a security auditor or a team go in, review those results, and maybe assign them to different members within your organization, and they can even send it through any bug tracking system that you use, either Jira or Bugzilla. And again, you can review the process you can repeat the process as you deem fit. So what I'd like to do now is just to go into the product itself, but before I do y'all have any questions? Okay, so just wanted to pull this up real quick. This is our Audit Workbench, which is the IDE tool that we have available within software installation. As you can see, you can easily start a Java project. If you do have other languages, because we do support 23 different languages, you can go to the advanced scan and initiate that scan from there within the tool. As you can see, I do have some scans that I've already run. So rather than rerunning the process, I can easily click on these and open up an FBR file that will give me a list of those vulnerabilities found. And as we mentioned, we have a Visual Studio built-in integration. You can easily set that up to where the process is automated for you. Now, if you use IDEs like Visual Studio or Eclipse, here I just have a quick sample. As you can see, you have two Fortify tabs, one for Fortify SDA, the other would be for Fortify On Demand, in case you want to go in and send or upload your source code to our Fortify On Demand tenant. But right here, I can easily go in and analyze a solution that I have, or even generate an audit file to take a look at. Now right here, I do have that audit file listed within Visual Studio. And to build, you can see when you do run scans, we organize them in terms of criticalities. So you can see those critical applications, high, medium, or low apps, or you can totally view the whole vulnerability if you so choose to. And that's what this tab on the top represents. Now, it's filter set to a quick view, and what that does is only going to show you your critical and high vulnerabilities, because we feel that's what you need to take a look at first before looking at the mediums or low, because most of those are typically noise and false positives. But I can easily go in and change my view to the security auditor view, and I can see a full list of all the different vulnerabilities out here. What I will do, I will go ahead and switch to the Audit Workbench. That's the view that I'm typically used to, and still it's about the same, to where we see all the vulnerabilities listed from critical to a total of every single one. Over at the top here, I can switch to the auditor view, or I can even add my own personal view, depending on what I'm interested in, either as a security team or the developer. One thing that we also give is giving you the ability to filter the types of vulnerabilities, because what we've noticed is different teams within the organization might be responsible for different items, or you might have a team that's familiar in viewing the vulnerabilities in terms of maybe PCI, or they're used to viewing it in terms of OWASP top 10. So over by the group by, you can easily come and filter to the view that you're used to. So right here, all those vulnerabilities have been listed in terms of the OWASP top 10. Or I can go in and say I would want to view in regards to PCI 3.2, and it's just going to list all the different vulnerabilities that way. Let me go ahead and switch back to the category view. And right here, we have everything listed in terms of the categories, either cross-site scripting, either patent manipulation, or even privacy violation. Let's say we want to take a look at the cross-site scripting as a quick example. And let's look at the forgot password real quick. As you can see, it's going to give you the line of code where that one vulnerability lies. And over at the bottom here, sorry, am I still on the line?
Yes.
Okay. And over at the bottom here, we can see an analysis view of the vulnerability and the path that it took. But let's just switch over to the bottom tab in the middle, and you can see we're able to view a summary detail of this vulnerability itself, telling us the exact line of code, and giving us an explanation of this cross-site scripting vulnerability. I can look at the recommendations tab, and the recommendation of this vulnerability will be given to you based off of your primary programming language. In this case, since this is a Java file, it's going to give me recommendations on how to remediate these vulnerabilities in relation to Java. If your code is written either in C#, C++, any of the other languages, it's going to list that there for you. Now, something that a bunch of developers like, they're able to see a quick diagram and a quick trace analysis of the vulnerability itself and see how it moves through the source code, and if there are any screenshots that you would like to add maybe for the development team or someone you want to remediate this, you have the ability of doing that too. Over on the summary tab, you can easily assign it to a user within the system. Right now I do not have a user listed, but I can easily select here. If I feel this is not an issue, I can go ahead and put that, or if it's exploitable, I can go ahead and select that, and when I assign it to someone, the person sees, okay, this is something I need to remediate and work on. Any questions or concerns? So this is just a quick walkthrough of the Fortify Static Code Analyzer. Are there any areas within the system, or is there any questions or anything you'd like to see?
Hey George, hey, this is Richard speaking. So on talking about the ability, I know you can prioritize. I know I'm looking at the different shades of colors there, so you can actually see the red versus the orange. So I'm providing this would provide a prioritization of the issues. So if I'm a developer, I guess critical would always be the ones that I need to go to, essentially. I don't know if you want to talk about through that.
Sorry, do you mind repeating that?
Yeah, so if you look at, I'm just saying at your left-hand panel there, you have the critical, then you have the orange, the yellow, to the green. So again, this, if you can kind of explain, this kind of talks about the prioritization of your issues there.
Yes. This is prioritized in terms of criticality. So we have the critical, the high, medium, and low vulnerabilities, and it's based off of one, how exploitable the vulnerabilities are, and two, if exploited, what risk does it present within the organization. So based off of that, you have all the vulnerabilities found within your source code or within your application arranged in terms of criticalities. Now, if it does pick one as a critical vulnerability and you find out that, well, maybe within your organization it's not considered one that is critical or high, that's not considered that, you can always switch and change out the type of criticality. Now, but the red would be the most critical vulnerabilities found, your orange would be the high, yellow would be your medium. Let's see, what is this? I'll call this lime, would be your low vulnerabilities. You can add different folders depending on your organization's need. Then the last, which will be the green, would be a total of all the different vulnerabilities found.
And George, can I change that prioritization on those certain categories if I wanted to?
Yes, you can.
And can you talk a little about false positives?
So on the SEA tool, you will be able to view all the different results, including false positives. Now, one thing that we have done, and it comes with the SSE integration, which is the Software Security Center, we have a new feature called not security assistant, software analytics, and what this does, it looks at our database of all the scans that we may have run, and also looks at industry standards in terms of eliminating what it feels to be false positives and not. So that actually helps shrink down a list of your mediums and your lows, like right here where we have 12 mediums and about 885 low vulnerabilities. It helps reduce that down and help eliminate those false positives that might be listed here. Traditionally, there is no remediation or removal done on our part for our on-premise tools. That is only a feature that's available for our Fortify on-demand customers, to where our testing engineers are able to go in, remediate, and eliminate most of the false positives that you have. For our on-premise solutions, the organization will be responsible for that, and once you recognize or identify a vulnerability as a false positive, it is marked in the system, so for future scans that you run, it will be eliminated.
So George, I guess to just clarify to the audience, if I had SCA as perpetual or on-premise software, I would be essentially responsible for reviewing my issues and all the false positives that I may see. I would have to resolve that. If I went with the on-demand with Fortify, I would send my code up, it would get analyzed. HP would have a representative security specialist that would sit with me and help me go through those false positives beforehand, before they meet with me, and say, these are really the ones you should concentrate as a development team. Am I right in my statement there?
Very, very close. Before the results are actually published within the portal, it's gone through a team of our test engineers to review those results. So by the time you have the results uploaded within your portal, it's already reviewed, and your false positives and all have been taken off. Now, if you do, after that, it's still arranged in terms of criticality, so you will still be able to see your critical, high, medium, and low vulnerabilities. If you consider at that time one of the vulnerabilities that we found is a false positive, we do have a false positive challenge tab that you can select. Very, very, very similar to, tell you what, let me go back in here. use this as an example. Very similar to where you have the analysis tab and you select if it's not an issue or not, you would have one that says false positive challenge. What this does is it triggers a message to our Fortify On Demand team. They're going to review that vulnerability and if indeed they consider it to be a false positive, it will be marked a false positive within the system. So when you do run future scans, it doesn't come up.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay, so one tab I know I didn't touch on would be the reports, and I know this is very crucial to a lot of organizations, but you can easily come in and download a report based off of your need. Now, we do offer some templates, anywhere from the CWE going down to PCI, and if you do select any of this, take OWASP Top 10 as an example, we can filter down to the year that pertains to us, either from 04 to 2013. And I can select some key items that I would like added to that report, anywhere from key terminology over to the categories that we selected. So when we go ahead and select these, I can easily choose a format here, going into PDF or an Excel document, and I can select the path in which I want that file to be stored. So once that's done, I can easily generate the report, and I can access it based off of that folder that I listed. Any questions here?
All right. Well, hey, George, thanks so much for providing this demonstration. Everyone will be sending, I know this is a recording, we'll be sending this out if you guys want to review the session again. If you have any questions whatsoever, I'll definitely have my name, email address, David's, and George as well for any questions regarding the SCA product. All right, George, thanks again. David, do you have any closing words before we end the session?
No, thank you guys once again for joining. George, that was great. And yeah, as Richard said, if anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and George, Richard, or myself will be happy to look into it with you guys.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us.